Okay, so here's what we know. Prior to President Trump taking office, in just the last 4 years, there were at least 13 million illegal immigrants that entered the US. Exactly how many? We're unsure, which is a bit scary. It's well publicized that President Trump has been apprehending the worst illegals first. But so far, this has been like fighting an uphill battle with the legal system, the Albrego Garcia dispute being a clear example of what Trump is up against. So although he has been super successful at closing the border, millions of illegals remain. Once again, we are not going to get into the legalities and leave exactly who gets deported to the government officials and lawyers. In this DOGE idea, we are going to address the how of it all. While millions of illegals still remain here, how do we make our country safer and keep things fairer to American citizens? Because the reality is that the issue of what to do with illegals in the US is not simple, and it's not going to go away quickly. But now, under the Trump administration, ICE and Homeland Security are taking an aggressive approach to arresting and deporting illegals in the United States. However, reportedly under the current deportation plan, the goal is to deport 1 million illegals per year. Therefore, over 10 million illegals will remain in the United States for at least the next 3 years, often resulting in civil disobedience and violence. This growing problem recently escalated into riots in various cities across the United States, including Los Angeles and New York. It's abundantly obvious that a viable interim solution is needed to address the illegals that will remain in the United States during this process. So no matter how you look at it, the topic of illegals in the United States is one of the biggest logistical, legal, and financial problems facing our country. Under the Biden administration, they instituted catch and release, provided transportation to sanctuary cities, and supplied phones and credit cards for illegals. Now, the new Trump administration is offering $1,000 and plane tickets to self-deport. So what's our idea to improve upon that? Let's start with the low-priority illegals, including those awaiting trial and those that likely fit into the category of dreamers. Well, to start, every illegal that isn't immediately detained and deported would get jewelry. Hold on, we're not talking about bling, we are talking about smartwatches. Think of it as a wrist monitor of sorts. Under Biden's administration, they tried a program to give illegals ankle monitors connected to smartphones. This allegedly proved to be cost prohibitive, and there were complaints about the ankle monitors causing sleep problems as well as cutting into the ankle. But ankle monitors are a bit antiquated anyway. That's why we propose to update the jewelry and utilize a device that no one can say isn't healthy. Because in fact, it is a modified medical device. It's no different than wearing a watch. This would be a win-win, because it would not only monitor things like heart rate and substances present in the body like drugs and alcohol, an alarm would be triggered when the device is separated from the body. This would be a relatively simple programming adjustment to add. Of course, that alarm could also trigger a notification to law enforcement. Although the device would be designed to stay fastened on the wrist infinitely, really there is no need, because if the wearer removes the device, the net result would be the same. These devices could also be upgraded to include features such as panic buttons, and even include sensors to detect the presence of gunshot residue. When this happens, authorities could be instantly notified, and the system could trigger traffic cams and other CCTV to immediately begin collecting data in real time. This would act as both a major law enforcement tool and a deterrent. For women, the monitors could even be upgraded not only to be equipped with panic buttons, but to detect the presence of the precise hormones that are emitted from sexual activity and bodily signs of trauma. An alert could trigger if these markers were repeatedly detected in the body, warranting the woman to be brought in and assessed for rape. This would be a strong deterrent for sex traffickers, because the woman or girl would not be voluntarily reporting the abuse, their bodies would be. If that sounds invasive, it's nothing compared to the atrocities that happen in detention centers and unmonitored illegal communities. As the technology improves, sensors could be added to detect exposure to explosives, triggering cameras inside the unit to be activated, acting as a body cam of sorts, collecting whatever data is available. This would provide unprecedented monitoring of illegals while they are in the United States. These devices would provide mutual protection for actual US citizens and even for the illegals. With the rapid advancements in AI technology, monitoring 20 million people is now totally feasible. Not to mention, units would be less costly to produce than an old-fashioned ankle monitor. Basically, it's a glorified smartwatch. But the smart tracker watches are only the first part of our DOGE immigration idea. Part 2. All illegals currently residing in the United States must register and receive their smart tracker. If that sounds impossible, think about COVID and all the protocols people had to follow. Getting illegals registered could be much the same. For example, In order to open a bank account in the United States, you must be a U.S. citizen, green card holder, or registered as an illegal. This would include online banking type services like Zelle and PayPal. If the person has a PayPal account in another country, they would still be limited to following the restrictions for illegals. In order to go to the doctor, a dentist, even a veterinarian, people must have proof of citizenship, green card, visa, etc., or be a registered illegal. You get the idea. Doors to services would not be open unless the illegal is registered. No different than having had to have a proof of COVID vaccination. If illegals remove their smart tracker watches without authorization, their bank account and other monetary transaction accounts would be locked and could only be unlocked by authorities. But it doesn't stop there. Our idea includes fundamental rules like everybody works for their supper, unless they've been evaluated and found to be disabled. No one gets a free ride, and no one lives homeless. But the whopper part of the plan is that illegals would be legally prohibited from sending money to another country, even to their relatives. No more Western Union, MoneyGram, and other such services. No more having illegals come to the U.S. in order to send money back to their country of origin. If they are coming to the U.S. to seek asylum, sending money back to the country they left should be off the table. Legal immigrants have earned their rights, but illegals should not have the privilege of sending the money out of the country. The money they earn in the U.S. should stay in the U.S. economy. In 2023, immigrants into the United States sent an estimated $63.3 billion to Mexico alone. According to Al Jazeera, migrant workers sent $650 billion overseas last year. In addition, criminal activities would be seriously impeded if illegals could not send money out of the U.S. using services like Western Union. For those illegals that are caught violating the restrictions, they could be put in a detention facility. But even in the detention facility, they have to work. Be it to clean floors and toilets or serve food, just like inmates incarcerated in standard prisons, they have to work. No free rides. This would be a big deterrent for illegals to stay in the U.S. It is likely that this restriction alone would result in thousands of illegals self-deporting. Back to the working requirement. That doesn't mean these people wouldn't get choices and opportunities. Illegals would quickly be screened for their job skills, then presented with options. They will have the option to provide supplemental labor for government positions that are currently undermanned due to budget constraints, including public areas, parks, and recreation areas. Programs could also be set up to benefit approved small businesses by providing low-cost labor. The process for businesses to sponsor low-risk illegals would also be streamlined using AI. Illegal support workers would be paid reduced wages. Illegals would also be provided with a government-authorized PayPal-type account and a debit card. Wages would be paid directly into that account. If the illegal requires housing through a government program, room and board plus applicable taxes could be deducted from the pay they got from their work. All expenses would have to run through their PayPal-type account. There would also be money deducted and set aside within each illegal person's bank account to cover either legal immigration costs or deportation expenses. If the person is granted legal immigration to the United States, they would be liable to pay their immigration expenses. If citizenship is not granted, those funds will be used to pay for a plane ticket back to their country of origin or whatever country was specified by the court. The total cost for acquiring legal citizenship in the U.S. is reported to average between $4,000 to $11,300. However, most people end up spending between $6,000 and $8,000. So a portion of what the illegal earns would be set aside to cover these fees if applicable. But since in most cases going through the court system would take years, it is totally feasible that the amount needed to cover legal immigration expenses can be accrued within their accounts. So in closing, the issue of illegal immigration in the U.S. is a tough nut to crack, and it's not going anywhere fast. President Trump's pushing for $150 billion to beef up border security, detention, and deportation efforts over the next 5 years. It's a big number, and the House just gave it the green light. But here's the kicker. The American Immigration Council says deporting 13 million undocumented folks in one go could cost at least $315 billion, and that's lowballing it. If we're talking a slower approach, like 1 million deportations a year, we're looking at nearly $1 trillion over a decade, plus building way more detention centers and over 1,000 new courtrooms. Bottom line, this is a massive logistical, legal, and financial puzzle. Why not be open to exploring every possible option to solve it? Remember, this DOGE idea would be keeping $650 billion in the USA. It would ensure illegals pay their own way, whether it be legal immigration or deportation. The burden would no longer be on us, the American taxpayers. The systematic use of smartwatches for illegals would be a feasible, humane way to protect U.S. citizens and the illegals that wear them. When you consider all of the benefits, there is objectively a huge upside to this original approach. We hope you've enjoyed this totally unique out-of-the-box idea. Thank you for watching. If you found it thought-provoking, hit the like button, let us know what you think, and share it around. You are cordially invited back to Doge it out again. Bye for now, and don't forget to kiss my tech.
Wow, Anthony, thank you. That was informative for all of us here on the Kiss My Tech team, and hopefully to all of you watching from afar. Now that you've heard the top level of this pitch, please give us your constructive feedback in the comments section, and don't forget to kiss my tech.